Hello again, and welcome back to my live stream. Today we are going to cover it's a lot of etudes, but my freshman etudes for their very first semester. So there's a lot of ways to teach lessons. When you teach them for a grade, in other words, as a part of a school, it's a good idea to have at least some similar material, right, that you're going to have everybody do for a grade. And then you can give them different assignments as well, but that way everybody's playing something that's the same, that represents some kind of base level of knowledge, and then everybody's playing other stuff that maybe is more their specialty. So if you really like contemporary music, let's say, well, you're still going to play a Saxa Etude on week 2, and then you might also play Takamitsu Paths or something, right? So I think that's Takamitsu. Is that Takamitsu? Somebody will tell me in the comments. But so today I'm going to walk through how I would work on each one of them. I haven't practiced them at all, except that I've been using these same etudes for a number of years now. So I certainly know them, but we'll talk about the challenges, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on each one. I might do some full playthroughs so that you can hear the whole etude. Some of them are rather short. I also might struggle on some of them, and I can show you how I would work on those struggles, at least for now. And if you are one of my current students, then this is the kind of video that you could be making to send to me, because I also require my students to send me a video of their playing with some comments. And so I'm going to do the commentary live. You shouldn't do that because you should watch your video when you're not playing and then comment on it. But for now, I will, at least for the purposes of this video, try to give my comments in line just so that you know the kinds of things that we would be looking for. So, okay, what's the first one? The first etude is etude number 1 on page 17 if you're using the John Korak Conconi book. So Conconi etudes are beautiful singing etudes that we use mostly to work on our expressiveness, our tone, but also just our evenness of production, right? And we just had a master class on forward sound, either if you were at ECU this week or if you attended last week's stream on Friday. So I guess like a week from yesterday, right? So we want to do that, but low notes are very hard to feel that on. So we're really looking for that later in the piece to make sure that maybe we've done it. And then as we go back down into the low register, we want to try to keep that, right? So this is, in terms of practicality, I've got a sticky valve already. Again, same valve. It's as soon as I start streaming, my valves start sticking. And it's just because I haven't cleaned them still since weeks ago when this was happening to me. Just haven't had the time. So I brought my other trumpets to school, and they're working quite well, but all right, so let's talk about a methodology here, right? I know this is a singing etude, and so maybe I'm going to sing it, right? So it'll be da. Oops, way off. Ba. Okay, so da. Da. So here I need to decide what's the most important note. Where does this phrase go? Where is the arrival? And for me, it's across the bar lines, and then we kind of come away from that, and then all the way into the rest. So I never want to stop sustaining the shape, but I do want to taper it as well. So I want to sustain the tapered shape, if that makes sense. I know it doesn't make sense, but you want to you don't want to just let it back. You want to control it all the way down so that you have control of the production. All right, so let's play some of this. so maybe not a perfect run, but we have some of the idea there, right? And we want to make sure that we have nice tapered releases. I spent a little too much time probably. If I went back, and I will later today, if I went back and put a metronome to my playing, I bet that I take a little too long on each rest. So that's something else to work on, and we can just get our metronome out and find that out. But we won't belabor the point. Like I said, I'll keep moving on. But this one is all about expressiveness, about evenness of tone. But you heard I got a double buzz a couple of times, and that's something that maybe I would like to work out. I did warm up a lot before this and sort of did my whole routine, and so I'm a little bit fatigued. But mostly that double buzz comes from trying to force our lips together too much, and so kind of keeping them in the same place, and maybe even using a little bit of pressure. It can mean that you're using too much pressure too, but you'll have to experiment a little bit if you get that same problem and find out what it is you're doing. And then you really always want to put the air in charge, right? So, but if my lips aren't, if they're too spread, then I'm going to get an air ball instead. And so that's why we start to push our lips together. So it may be that I'm just starting to open, and then when I don't have the ability to play a D. So we can work on that just really quickly. So I let it happen a little bit, and then I try to just ease on out of it. I don't really know what my lip or my tongue or my air has to do, but I just want to say, okay, well, when it's not happening, you know, how do I get it to stop? And if I'm not strong enough to do it today because I played too much, then I need to stop playing. If I can do it, then it's maybe a coordination thing, or maybe I just have the strength and I can keep going. Anyway. Okay, so that's Conconi, the first etude on the first week. Now the next etude is from the Saxa book. It's on page 10. It's number 13. And we played that last one moderato as the tempo, and it feels very slow, but it's because it's in half notes, right? So this is pretty moderato. Now this next one is Allegro Vervace, but the problem with the Saxa book, there are many problems, according to most people, but I like a lot of the etudes in there. Some of them are not very good, but most of them are really pretty good etudes. But the problem is they don't give you the details of them. Sometimes are tricky. And remember, this is a transposition book, so it says to transpose to A flat, A, C, D, E flat, E, and F on this etude alone. Meaning that you can do that and that you're supposed to. I don't use it that way. I just want it for the etudes, and so in this case we're not going to transpose, but you're welcome to transpose. And I recommend it actually. If you start transposing these, then you get really good at transposition, and especially if you already know it in the home key, so to speak, without transposing, then you're just really playing by ear in a different key. And that's really, really valuable. So anyway, we're not going to transpose it probably much, if at all. And but it says Allegro Vervace, and then that's 6/8. So if you look up Allegro Vervace on like a what is this tempo in beats per minute kind of thing, it'll be way too fast to play this, right? It's probably like, and if it's 6/8, well, it's not going to be maybe almost is okay. But that seems a little slow, and it's certainly not going to be, right? It's not, 6/8 usually is felt in 2 and not in 8, and so, but in other words, it means the spirit of the song that we're playing is Allegro Vervace. It should feel like it's a pretty brisk tempo, right? So that's what we're going for. Now there are repeats in this. I don't require my students to take them, but I do hope that most of them, or I do hope that they will all get most of the right articulations. That's very important, and there are a lot of tricky ones in here. So now we can look through this. A good rule that we didn't do on the first one because it was maybe overly simple is if I see something that's complicated, then or maybe just the whole piece, if I'm not sure this is all 16th notes, well then I can start on the hard parts, at least what looks hard, and then I'm going to sing them half tempo first. We did sing the last etude, but I'm going to sing half tempo first, and then I'm going to play it half tempo so I can get the coordination of my physical playing right? And then I'm going to sing it full tempo with the fingerings and play it full tempo. And if you want to, you can start from the end of the piece so that you're always backing up one more. And we can do that a little bit here just to show it off. So the last bar of this goes dun, dun, da, 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 da. So not very much fingerings, right? Da, 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 ba, da. So I'm doing the articulation. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. That's, oh, sorry, that's not half speed. Dun, 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 dun. Real deliberate and with all the musicality that I can afford, and then full tempo if I'm going to go da 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 da. So now for me, I didn't have any trouble playing that bar, but if you did, then you need to work on it, right? And just work out the physical thing that's happening and do the best you can. Okay, so now we can back it up one more bar and the same thing. Da da da. Da 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 da. So I'm singing and I'm trying to be good at my ear training, because the better I can drill those pitches now, the easier it's going to be for me to not do anything funny with my embouchure, because I'll really know exactly where they are. Da 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 da. Da 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 da, and then da da ba ba ba, right? Now I can try it full tempo. Da. Da, 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 da. Now I lose control of my voice when I go fast. I believe that's hard for any vocalist, and they work on that. Sometimes I work on it if it's really important, but this is all in one key in C major, basically, right? So I think I'm going to go for it, and we'll see if it's a little bit harder than I want, then I'm going to go back to being vocally more accurate. But da 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 da. So that's how I might practice this whole thing. And I could just go another bar back and learn that with my voice, half tempo, learn it with my trumpet, half tempo, and then I can go through, I can sing the last three bars together. Well, we can do one more, why not? Dun, 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 da, 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 da. Once it feels easy to me, then I can do that part separate. And then now I can play all of that. And I'm just playing any bar half tempo that I still feel like, well, it wouldn't hurt me if I played that one more time, you know? And now, so there you go. That's how I would do this process, and you can go all the way to the end until that doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. But that way you know the ending of the piece the best. So as you're getting more physically tired, you're getting less mentally taxed, because you know the fingerings and the sounds better and better, even if your body is slowly running out of stamina. So it makes the whole piece feel a lot easier. I learned that from my dad. If he's watching, hi Dad. I didn't put up the decibel meter that you got for because it needs to be plugged into USB, and I don't have any USB things over here except for my printer, and the cord wouldn't stretch. So I got to get a different USB something, I don't know. But yeah, but it works really well. All right, It's really visible. So eventually we'll have like a decibel meter like here on the wall that's just constantly checking out what we're doing. All right, let's play some of this. I don't know if I end up finding a spot that I really should have worked on before, which I can see some that maybe, you know, might be iffy. Then I'll stop and work on it, and I'll show you maybe some things like chunking. It'll come up later anyway. So actually, the very next etude, I'm going to have to do some. But here we go. I missed one important articulation in there, right at the next to last line after the fermata. But so you see, it's a nice etude. It looks a lot harder than it sounds, and so that's all I'll say about it. Saxa 13 is gone. Oh, it's not this one that I thought was next. Okay, so this next one is number 3 from the Gates book. Gates is the odd meter etudes book. There's also odd meter duets. That's quite a nice duet book. I really like the duet book because it has silly names like Mixolydian Mix-Up and I wish I could remember another one. Well, it's all modal as well, so it's a lot of fun. But all right, here we go. So this one says in parentheses trumpet consordino, which means trumpet with mute. But I play it without a mute because I want to hear the difference in tone color if I want to make that, and the mute sort of prevents that. And it is in parentheses after all, so I think it's optional. But it's fun when people do see that and bring in a mute because they say, "Hey, you know, it says that." Now, the first repeat on here is necessary because we have one forte and one piano. And that's fun to do. And maybe I can go get a mute. I don't have my, I'm not tethered because I'm not using the headphones right now. So maybe we can get a mute that would really make a big contrast. Yeah. Use this Ingemann mute. I have not tuned it for anything, but we'll try to use that. Now it's tricky if you're going to do it like muted and not muted, which I've seen people do too. It's really tricky to get it in there. So we'll just show it both ways, and then I'll keep going as if I did it twice. All right, so I might look through this and say, well, what looks hard? Well, the accidentals, well, maybe just playing in 7/8 is hard. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So if that's hard for you, just start with that, right? Just start with going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and maybe mark those beats. I like to use a triangle marking above the bar for the 3 grouping, and then I put 2 slashes for like they were beats in 4/4 time, right? For the other 4/8 notes. And if you're not sure, just clap. You know, put a metronome on that is on 8th notes, and just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 with the metronome, so that you don't get lost. And then make sure you count all the way, or you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 if you want. Use the Tabito method, which is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But that's really more for septuplets and not so much for 7/8. So I would recommend just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's also the accents in this case. So, all right, this one I don't really need to work on, I don't think. But some things to watch out for. People like to rush any rest that they have, so that's why you make those markings. And also the accents. There's one bar that comes up a couple of times that goes dum bum, bup, bup, bup. So they'll either go bum, 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 bup, bup, which is 2 long rests before the next bar, or they'll go dum, bum, 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 because they're not really counting. Oh, excuse me. I should have brought my water in here. All right, let's stop talking, apparently, and let's just play this guy. And I'll just do the second one with the mute, just in case you wanted to hear that. So there you go, that's that etude. And that's almost too slow to play it, but if you actually put a metronome at 208, we'll do it right now. It's actually already faster than that, right? That's the very slow end that it says you can play it, but I don't find that in the spiritoso of Vervace. So that's what it's called. That's what it says on the top of the page, is Vervace spiritoso. So I try to play it, and it says 208 plus. So you can play it up to any tempo I suppose you feel like is reasonable. It does say also at the bottom, this etude is in the style of a folk dance, mark the accents well. And I think we did that. All right, moving on. Now, etude number 2 from the Clark book. So you're not looking for characteristic study number 2. You're looking for the normal technical studies, which has the one that everybody knows. Almost missed it, right? That exercise. And at the end of each of those exercises, there's a little etude. Now, one way to use these etudes is to sort of, if you didn't want to do all of them today, let's say that, well, apparently I need to do F sharp a little bit, right? Okay, well then I could do F sharp and I could do maybe A flat and A, whichever ones I'm a little rusty on. But what if I'm not sure, or I feel like I'm equally, I know them all pretty well and they don't seem to go too badly? Well, etude number 2 goes through almost all the keys. I've never actually counted, but it goes through a lot of different keys, and the patterns change, and so it's kind of like a one-stop shop for a lot of the things that you might do otherwise in the technical study. As well as the articulation is difficult, and it is possible, I believe, to do this in one breath. I don't know that I will do that, but now it says metronome quarter note equals 144. I can't do it that fast. You'll see what I mean. I'm sure people can do it this fast, but okay, so let's say you're my student and you're worried about that. Well, think about what you're going to do in your lesson, right? Nobody wants to hear you just try to go fast when you really, if you... That's not going to be that's not going to be a good grade, right? But if you can go some percentage of the tempo and be really clean about it, even up down to half of the tempo, right? Because what's the point of the etude? Well, in this case, it's a really good like single, stop for a bunch of scales, so little chunks of scales. That's important. Like I said, it's also sort of an endurance study. It's all below, like in the staff and below, so it's not working on your high range. Etude number 3 does that. I think etude number 1, you go up to high C, but it's about dexterity, and it's about keeping a really good sound through what is the normal register of the trumpet all the way down to the low register, right? So I'd rather hear people sound nice than and get the right fingerings than sort of muddle through it, if that makes sense. And the way that you work on that in the first place, if you wanted to go fast, is you need to get it slow first, right? So, and again, we could do the same things. And we could do a little chunking in here because I'm sure I'm going to mess up some fingerings at first. And so another way, I mean, we don't have to be perfect machines about practicing. So another thing that I can mention here is that sometimes you just want to play through the etude and find out what's in there, right? You don't want to look through it and try to guess and put little, X's at the ends of the lines or circle things and sing things right away. Just play. If you want to just play it, then just play it. It's only going to take one time out of you, which shouldn't kill your whole day. If it does, then you've already played too much, right? But think about that. And if you want to just play it, then play it, and we can see how it goes, and then we can recap. And this would be, again, this is a great way to say, like, okay, I've worked on this already today. Now let me play it, record it, and then stop playing for a little while and go watch that video and see which parts sound good enough and which parts where my fingers didn't quite go down right, and I'll just do that and circle those, and then I can go back and practice them. So like I said, I'm not gonna sit here and watch a video in front of you watching me watch a video, but we'll pretend like we did that. All right, and we could use a metronome for this whole thing. So let's see, how fast do we actually want to go? Well, half tempo sounds pretty good right now to me, but this is 86, we'll put it. That's about as fast as I think I can go, actually. Let's go down to 78. Okay? All right, so I immediately rushed. I had a little bit of that cracked double buzz tone. Again, my lip is just a little bit overused today. I also articulated in one spot where I shouldn't have, and it wasn't all perfectly in tune. So we can go back and do this. Oh man, I gotta clean these horns. We can go back and do this a little bit. Just chunk by chunk. So let's do that. Chunking really is quite literally just take a chunk and just do that and then move on to the next chunk, right? But you can do chunking in time, and you can do it in different configurations. So I'll show you what that means. If I want to do, at the beginning I could probably do a bar at a time, right? So I can put my metronome on. I'm having trouble getting the first note, so I mean, it's not great. So I could work on that for a little while, but let's move on. That might be a more fundamental thing that I work on in my routine tomorrow. For now, I'm just going to play the first bar all in time. It's really important you go across the bar line because you want to eventually tie this all together. Now, do I think I can do the next bar? Maybe. Let's try it. So besides my valve sticking, that was a pretty good method for this one at the level of knowledge that I have right now. Now, if I couldn't do a whole bar at a time, don't forget, by the way, I didn't mention it while we were playing for obvious reasons, but don't forget that there is a key signature to this, right? Everybody forgets the F sharp in the third line, in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bar, right? But it's in there, and it's through most. It gets naturalized a lot of the times in other spots, and so then it's okay, but not everywhere, right? So, and the other bars have sharps in them already, so it feels more okay to play F sharp. But anyway, all right. So now if that was too much for me, right, then I could have done one beat at a time, right? And let's do that. And I want to show you the different configurations that you can do. So you can start on the first note, da 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 da, right? Or I can do, let's say I want to do 4 notes every time plus, across the bar line. Da 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 dum, da 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 dum, right? Da 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 dum. I'm singing the 4th bar. Da 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 dum. Da 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 is the next note, right? Now I could also go da 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 da, which is basically the same thing, but now I'm starting on the second note, right? I'm doing E and a 1, E and a 1. And the secret to this is that you're giving your brain space to look ahead for a beat, right? Where you're just holding, and then you play that. So you're mentally doing it at half speed, but you're physically doing it at full speed in little chunks, right? And then you can do that instead of, you can stop on the second note. Da 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 da, all the while doing, practicing physically and orally, right? And you can also combine this with other methods. I can do chunking and slowing it down. I can do singing and chunking and slowing it down, right? I can do singing and chunking. And you can really get a lot done, especially when your lip hurts or if you feel like you need to practice more but you just don't have it in you right now. You can get a lot done just going da 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 da, right? Just little chunks, whatever you think you can handle, but always do it in time. So I'll do a little bit of this for you. Let's see, we'll get into the really bad spot. Fourth to last bar. And so you'll find that some of those are easier than others to do. If you don't know what I just did, I went stopping on the first note, or holding the first note, and then E and a hold note, E and a hold note. Then I went 1 E, hold on the second note, 1 E and a 1 E, right? And then I did it on the third note, and then I did it on the fourth note. And so some of those will make sense to you and some of them won't. And the ones that don't make the most sense, the ones that are hard for you to play, those are the ones you probably need to practice the most in order to get a fluid, solid run of it, right? So that's what that one has in store for you. And you want to get it as close to 144 as you can, but like I said, I'm happy to hear somebody do a great job at 78 than a lot happier hearing that than I am hearing somebody hack through it at even 100. So okay, let's leave that one for now. I always overdo things, and it's already been a half an hour. So if you have any questions, if you're watching this online, I know there are a couple of people in the chat, you're welcome to ask me questions about this. But all right, so the next one is Saxa Etude, and the number is cut off on mine, so let's go look it up. Saxa, page 43, number 52. Okay, and if you have the packet that I sort of, the PDF version of this, it is the bottom etude on that page 43. So again, I could I could walk through this and see if I can find anything that I really need to do, but again, we have the problem. It says moderato, it says 6/4, so I could think of moderato is this a tempo, roughly, right? Maybe even a little faster, but then I'm going da 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 da. The etude's going to take forever to play at that speed. Instead, I like to think about it as that doesn't seem too fast to me, but it seems to kind of click along still, right? And more importantly, it doesn't wear my lip out because I'm playing for an hour. All right, well, let's see how I do. I'm just going to try to go for it this time. I can't see it all. That's a problem. Darn it, I almost got that. Let me try the ending again. I was worried about the breath I took, and I just got distracted, and then I played like, I don't know, a C sharp or something. I don't know. Well, let's try just the last line again. Yeah, that's more like it. So there are some tricky things in there. Mostly what people forget in these etudes is the carry through accidentals, and that really shouldn't happen. If you are listening and not playing notes, right? In other words, if you are thinking about the sounds that you are playing instead of the fingerings of notes on the page, then you should never be able to miss carry through accidental because you'll hear it. It should feel wrong to you, right? But what people do a lot is they get into note reading mode and they aren't playing sounds, and then all of a sudden they're playing a G natural when it used to be G sharp in the bar, and it should be. And that just says to me as a teacher that you didn't learn it by the sound, and maybe because you didn't have time to do that. But just because you don't have time to do something doesn't mean that you should do it any other way, right? So in other words, if you don't have time, then you're just going to read it and be like, yeah, that's close enough, I guess. I got to move on. Well, then you didn't really spend the time on it to learn what it has to offer as an etude. So anyway, I like this etude. Let's keep moving. Now this one is another Conconi. What is this? Conconi, page 33, number 24. And I won't play all of this just because it's a lot of long notes, but it's very similar to the last one, except now we're not in as easy of a key as B flat major, right? This is going to be, I believe, in F minor. And so these go along with scales as well that we're going through a lot of the time. This one, I believe, goes along with A flat major probably. Oh no, that was the last week. This one goes along with C sharp minor, which I'm not sure why I had those, except maybe that I just needed to put both of them somewhere, and so I did. But anyway, let's try it out. And again, it's about expression, about tone consistency and tone color. Maybe we want to use color a little bit to change because there's no dynamics written here. And I really want to just do as much as I can musically. I also, if you're looking at home on the PDF, I also put little fermatas on here, and that's where when I was practicing this as a student, I held on to that note until I could get my best sound back, and then I would move on. So I recommend that as a practice, not necessarily as, don't do it when you're performing. Okay, so let's get this going here. And a lot of people right here will miss this key change, but it's the most important part. It's the coolest part. It goes from F minor to F major, so you get to play all of that same kind of material again, but now in this major key. And in fact, it's the nicest little, it's sort of this little sunrise between the clouds, and then you go back. So anyway, that's what that one is about. Probably the same problem I had before, where I probably am adding a little time to the rests because I'm trying to make a nice taper. And I think that's okay in an effort of physical things that we need to learn, but not for performances. That's the thing I need to work on, is my slowing down when I'm playing lyrical and slow things. So, all right, next one is Gates number 4. And this one is pretty straight ahead. It's in 5/4, which is usually not too much trouble for people. It says Andante con modo at 1/16 to the quarter note. We can find out what that sounds like. I think I play this one a little too fast if I had to be. Yeah, I play this one a little too fast, but the big difficulty here is that the section at B, right, is in G flat major. That's not a very nice key, but it's really not as bad as it seems, and especially if you know G flat. This is probably paired with G flat major in my syllabus, so that you play that scale on this week, or F sharp major, if you will. That's probably how it's written, but there is one really nasty lick in this, and I'll get to it, and I'll talk about it and practice it a little bit when we get there, all right? And then there's a little kind of cadenza at the end, and up until this point in my freshman materials, right, we haven't seen a true cadenza, and so it's a nice way to just say, like, well, how do you do that? When you see little notes like that, what do you do with it? And some people have never seen a cadenza before, and so then they say, yeah, I didn't know what to do. And it helps us address that right away. So here we go. This is Gates Etude number 4, which is Andante con modo, and then it's going to be piamoso. So that actually, it's even worse than I said. The G flat major section is also faster. So you couldn't tell that's the mean lick. And it's not that bad. It's some fourths and a third and then backwards, right? But it's just so darn fast. Da 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 da. And it's hard to get your coordination. So the trick to it is, first of all, if you can't do even just that shape physically, then you got to work on that. And that's just going to be right, try something easier first and try to get the speed up to it. Because if you can't do that physically, then it doesn't matter if you have the right fingerings or not. It's not going to happen. And then once you've got that, then we've got to get these pitches and fingerings, and that's gonna be the same old, right? See. I did a little chunking there, right? A little bit like faster by themselves, but a little bit separate. The hard one is coming from D flat back to A flat because our third finger tends to be slow. And then once you got that, then you just hold it, right? So I'll show you a little bit of practice and see if I can get it a little bit better, but this is the kind of thing that is very fleeting, so when you're actually performing it, it might not go the way you want, and the hardest thing to do for most students is don't stop just because you're missing some notes, right? Just play right through that. Maybe nobody will notice. If I'm writing some grades in, and I just hear a really nice da-da-da-da at the end, and I'll be like, oh, wow, I guess Gabriel got it. I don't know, right? So you can see it gets a little hairy, and at some point your body and your mind start to get tired too. We've been at this for 49 minutes, and so maybe I'm not going to get this today, or maybe I'm only going to get it a little slower, in which case, all right, better to get it slow, a little bit slow, and really get it, because then it just means I haven't gotten it up to speed yet, and then I can work on that with a metronome. And then, like I said, there's a cadenza at the end. You don't need to hear me do that. It's just a recap and then a cadenza. Well, cadenza is, if you don't know, I guess that's what I'm preparing you for. It's that you play it slightly out of time. I guess I can do more of it. Let me see here. So here we've got, I'll play the whole last two bars. So that's just one way to play a cadenza. Oh, my dad says surprise time. Yeah, I didn't. I talked about it earlier, but the cord is too short, so and it needs to be plugged into USB. I don't have anything over here, so I got to get an extension or something. But it'll be up soon. It works great. It's very big, bright numbers. The decibel meter is what that is. So anyway, that's Gates number 4. In all its glory. Now we're going to go to one of my very favorites. I don't know, I won't have the stamina to play this one all the way through, but this is Conconi, page 89, again from the John Korak version of the Conconi book. It's the complete solfeggi, and so this is etude number 4 on page 89, and it's a really nice etude to transpose down a step on C trumpet, which I could show you, I guess, but most freshmen don't have a C trumpet, and if you're studying with me, and I would argue maybe anybody, if you bring in some of your etudes, but you've played them in the right concert key, but on a different trumpet than they might have anticipated, that's usually not going to be a problem, right? What starts to be a problem is when if you don't prepare something well. But if you prepare something really well, but you've played it down a step, you said, well, it's easier in, it's easier in the key of D on C trumpet than it is in the key of E on B flat trumpet. If your teacher really wants you to play it in E, then either they could have been more explicit, or they'll just tell you to do it again next week on B flat trumpet in the key of E, right? So I wouldn't worry about it too much, and you can tell them I said so. But anyway, this is just a really nice etude that I think is really hard oh, what we got? Meeting Saturday, 1-point football loss. I don't know what that means. I assume it's an ECU versus state thing, because that's what's happening in town right now. And that's why I'm doing this, because that's bonkers down there. I don't want anything to do with it. All right, here we go. Conconi number 4. Now this one I probably will have some tricky things. The double sharps, if you've never seen a double sharp, it looks like a tic-tac-toe board or a chessboard. That means sharp it twice, right? So if it's an F and then it's a double sharp, that's an F, F sharp, really a G natural, it's an F double sharp, right? But you play it open. And there's a lot of other stuff in here, A sharps, a lot of bad notes. And so you look through it first and mark everything if you need to. Mark all the G sharps that are part of the key signature, right? And then it has a nice transition to another key and then back to the original key. And I just love the way that it does it, because it prepares you. You get a B flat, and then you get it tied to an A sharp, which I like to add vibrato on, and then you go to the B. So I'll try to play as much of this as I can. I love this etude, but I'm liable to start to get tired here. So let's see how I do. So that is across that bar line at least. And I messed up that G sharp. See, I should mark that one in. I was anticipating the new key signature, and I was so excited because it's my favorite moment in the whole thing, and I just got carried away. And that's the perfect example of why write something in that you know and you do most of the time. Well, because if you get excited about what you're doing, or if you get distracted by what someone else is doing, if it's an ensemble or something like that, or maybe it's performance class, write in things that you think you even might miss, because they're probably not going to distract you if they're helping you, right? And in a lot of ways, it helps you to refocus over and over again. So now there's still sort of a recap to this that I didn't play, but well, like I said, I'm getting pretty tired, and that wasn't too bad. I pushed myself enough there where I thought, well, I should stop in this section, but I'm going to just keep going. And that's a good thing to do as well. You can also play things in sections. If you're really fatigued, maybe we'll do that next. We'll keep looking. So the next etude is Saxa 96, I believe. Let's make sure. How many more of these do we have? We're almost there. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be a long 4 etudes for me, but all right. So Saxa 96. Now this one is absolutely one of my favorites. And some of it is I think actually not really possible. Well, maybe this isn't the one. It's really hard to do the sextuplets and the fingerings and pull out your slides. I don't know if you noticed this before when I was doing the Clark etude, right? I was making sure to pull out my slides correctly, at least make an attempt to do so, so that I wasn't, out of tune on those notes. Even if it's only just for a split second, if I put all these 3 fingers down, at least one or both of my fingers should go out automatically and then right back in when I let go, right? So that's going to happen a lot in this one, and I bet I get a lot of first valve sticks because of it, because again, my horns need to be cleaned, and that was on the list to do today, and then I went and helped a friend try to pull an engine out of a car, and we did not do that, so we tried a lot, but we'll see. So anyway, here's Saxa 96. And I might stop and start. And like I said, if you are fatigued but you feel like you still have more stuff to play, the first answer is sing a lot more, right? A lot more. Just start singing. And take some concentration breaks and some physical breaks as well. And just come back later. If it's getting down to the wire, you've only got 2 more hours before you need to go to sleep and you've got a lot of stuff to look at, well, okay, then just stop whenever you need to. And that will be better than beating your face into the ground, trying to play through the whole thing when you just don't have the endurance, right? Thinking of one of my students in particular who was just talking about not having enough time to do all this. And yeah, it can be really daunting. In fact, for me right now, I've got brass quintet, I've got a solo I'm playing with the concert band, and I've got an entirely other brass quintet that's going on tour in Europe. And I need to print the music and look at it in a week while I'm teaching lessons. So yeah, it can get really crazy. But you just say, all right, well, I can do what I can do. I've got to get to work. I've got to sing a lot. I've got to get the fingerings. I got recordings if I can get recordings. And then when I start to get fatigued while I'm trying to play through things, I'm just going to stop when I feel that fatigue and then start again in the same place, maybe a few bars earlier to get the connection, okay? And you'll see that gets smaller and smaller, but if you practice like that, it's really valuable on a gig where when you can't make another note come out, if you just take a nice big breath and a measure of rest, you can get another bar to come out. And then you take a nice big breath and another measure of rest. And so even if you're only playing every other bar, maybe that's all the high Fs in the gig. And you can basically play your best trumpet playing for shorter and shorter amounts of time, but in little bursts like that, and nobody's the wiser, right? I played a lot of high Fs and double high B flats at the ends of concert that I didn't deserve because I knew how to do that, and that's because that's how I practice. So anyway, here we go. Saxa 96. I know how this goes, but I don't believe my printer printed the right second page. It may be even missing from the PDF. I hope not. Usually the books come in by now in the semester, and so maybe this PDF might have been missing that page. But anyway, that's my favorite part anyway. So, and you can see the hardest part is, well, the first part, right? Getting these C sharp minor triads. It's like the X-Files. But then the real impossible part, I think, is the trill with a trill finisher into the next note that happens twice, and I'll show you that now. You have to do it this slow in order to get that to even be more than one cycle of a trill. And so maybe that's what I'm supposed to do, is do it slower. You be the judge. When you're playing it, you can figure that out. All right, I guess we won't play any more of that because I don't have it. The next one in there is going to be, I thought I had Saxa as well. Page 63, number 77. Yeah. And this one I probably would need to look at a little bit, but in the interest of time, we already have some ways to look at it and look at things, right? I can chunk things, I can slow them down, I can sing them first. I've played these enough that I should know most of them. So I'll look at one spot with you, and then I'm going to try to play. Well, we'll see how far I get, right? Yeah, this is a spot, so that G sharp in the key signature, easy to forget about because you see some other sharps around. A lot of times I'll just do it in my head for a second, just like, oh, is that going to be... Okay, yeah. Right, and if you can do that, then you can go ahead and try it. Again, what is it? One trial, and if you mess it up, well, then just make sure you do it twice the right way. Twice well, okay? We won't go too fast. This one says Allegro moderato, and I think so on. I just skipped. Oh, the other part that's hard actually is right there. Well, we'll see how I do. Rough, but like I said. All right, so you can see the spots that I needed to work on a little bit, and I would work on them by ear slowly, not just run over them over and over again, because that's just going to be frustrating, right? If you just play it wrong a bunch of times and keep hesitating, you're building in. Whatever you practice is what you're going to be good at. So if you practice, I'll give you an example of what not to do. right? And you just do that over and over again, you're going to do that every time there because that's how you play that. But instead, if you just slow it down even a little bit and practice it smoothly and sing it some of the time, right, then you're going to do much, 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 much better. So, and if it physically is not happening slowly, it's not likely to happen fast. And I demonstrated that quite well, that I can't, sometimes I just can't get it to work in the low register when I'm tired. And, well, I have to work on it. In my fundamentals, though, it's not going to happen in today's etude if my fundamentals are not covering it. Okay, so let's keep moving. I like this one a lot. This is Gates number 14, and we're almost done. We have one more conconi after this, I think. Yeah. Yeah. This one is, it's just a really nice dancey kind of thing. And it's in compound meter. So in other words, it's not in 1 meter the whole time. It's in 3/8, 3/8, 2/8, 3/8, 3/8, 2/8. But 3/8, 3/8, and 2/8 all add up to 8/8, which is 4/4, which is 2/2. And so he writes it out in both. So if you have trouble with mixed meters, and maybe this should be first in my setup here, but if you have trouble with mixed meters, you can read the bottom one and learn it that way because it's in cut time, essentially something standard. And then you can, once you have the timing of that, then you can maybe start to look at the other one and get, because the accents and everything are all in the same place. And so he says basically practice tapping your foot in unequal beats while reading the top line. And so anyway, that's the Gates book trick here. Let's see, I don't think there's anything really crazy in here. There's a little bit of a roadmap, so if you don't know what DCL and then this sign, this coda sign means, then you have to figure that out. You can look it up, but I will tell you now, DC means da capo, and the way I remember is da capo means da topo, right? And so you go all the way back to the beginning until you see that sign again. And then that sign tells you to go where the other sign is. So there should be 3 of these little crosshair symbols, and one is DCL crosshairs, right? So that's da capo until you see it again. And then when you see it again, you skip to the last one in this case. Okay? So that's what we're doing. I don't know if I guess I will do that just to prove it. Okay. See if my lip holds out for this. Yeah, when you're tired, that last octave will get you. And then I didn't quite play the Phrygian sound that I should have. No, it's not Phrygian even. It's what is it? Well, altered sound, let's just say. But that's the general gist of that one. And then finally, if I'm not mistaken, we've got conconi number 21 on page 120. Yes, 21 on page 120. And this one is, well, it's a lot like the first one. It's very deceptively easy looking. And I would say it is easy, as long as your production and everything is going really well. I'll play some of it. Long notes, when you get tired, are the hardest thing to do. And so I'm not going to probably be able to make it through after an hour of playing for you guys. I've now played 12 etudes in a row and practiced even some of them. So, but I had some rest when I'm talking to you, so that's not so bad. Yeah, my dad loves the Gates book. That's where I learned it. And the Gates duets, I said earlier, are my favorite because they have the dumb name. What is there's a cakewalk one. There's Mixolydian Mix-Up, and then there's something cakewalk. It's escaping me now. But anyway, all right, here we go on the last etude, Phrygian cakewalk, perhaps. Yeah. Anyway. This is a great example. That's the end of a phrase. And now going on, it's going to get into sort of like a development or like a B section that's kind of more chromatic is maybe a better way to put it. And so, but I'm tired. So me going on now, I'm just going to miss more notes, sound bad. I don't want to do it. But if I rest long enough, then I can pick up right where I left off. And it's as if I had that continuity. I won't be able to rest like this when I play it through for my lesson or whatever, but it's a good way to get a little more out of the day. And as a matter of fact, you need to learn it, right? How to play when tired after just a short rest. So it's a good way to do this. Here we go, a little bit more. I only have a few more notes left, but I didn't feel like they were going to go super great if I kept going. I'm already shaking a little bit just trying to hold my embouchure together for the low notes. So forget about anything in the staff right now, right? But a short rest should do it. Always nice tapered released last notes, right? Even if we're tired, especially when we're tired. So that's it. That's the whole list. Now during this list, if you were in my studio as one of my freshmen, you'd also be playing solo materials. Maybe you like the Honegger Entrada, and so we could do that. Maybe you want to do the Haydn Trumpet Concerto. That's great. Maybe you really like cornet solos, and so we're doing that stuff. And you'd also be working out of the Arbenz book and doing excerpts, transposing every week. There's a lot more to lessons than just one of these every week, right? But this gives us some music to play in case there's some kind of issue going on, like maybe I need to do an embouchure change. well, I don't want to be playing the Haydn trumpet concerto when I'm trying to do an embouchure change. It's probably not going to go very well. But I could play one of these etudes probably, and it wouldn't be quite as harrowing of an experience. Sometimes we have to just put everything on hold if it's a big enough deal, but most of the time we can do some of those other things, and at the very least we can do them orally. In other words, I can sing, I can do the fingerings, and even if I physically am going through something, I can figure out how to play one etude a week, at least a little bit, and then I can demonstrate how far I've come on whatever it is that's holding me back, and that's a nice feeling. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for me this week. It's been an hour and 16 or 17 minutes, and that's enough for me after I already practiced. I thought this would be the performance part of my day, and well, it sure has been. So I got to listen to this back now because I want to hear all the mistakes I made and try to correct them. I am going to start to record these etudes on YouTube and really try to get good versions of them individually, and then maybe some practice notes at the end. But I really just want to get good takes of them. Just video comes on, play the etude, video goes off, and that way that will be a good reference for my students when they come here. But and also for people who are considering coming here, this is the kind of materials that we're gonna. You could learn them off of the internet before you even show up, and then you could just play them like I just did. It takes an hour and 20 minutes apparently to play all the etudes and rest a little bit in between, and you could be done with your whole first semester of etudes, and then we could just do whatever we want. So anyway. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, and I will see you in the next stream.